This is the Loaded Radio Podcast.
All right, hey, it's Scott Penfold here for another edition of the Loaded Radio Podcast. Great to be back for another one, a special one. Again, this week, we got a twofer going on as I'm going to be joined by not one, but two special guests. First, I'm going to be talking to Devin Swank. He is the frontman for death metal band SANGUISUGABOGG, who have the new album Homicidal Ecstasy, and some serious brutality from the Ohio-based death metal band is what you're going to get, man, with the new album. And going to be great to be talking to Devin. Of course, the latest video and tune, Face Ripped Off, is definitely getting a lot of talk for its absolutely over-the-top gore fest. I mean, if you dig horror, if you dig that campy sort of horror, it's a video that you're going to want to check out if you haven't checked it out yet, but probably don't do it at work. Probably not the best idea. Definitely an NSFW video courtesy of SANGUISUGABOGG. So yeah, we'll be talking to Devin very soon, and then in the second portion of the podcast this week, I'm going to be talking to Pierce the Veil guitarist Tony Perry, as Pierce the Veil have the new album, The Jaws of Life, which is dropping February the 10th. The band already releasing a couple of singles off that. The first being Past the Nirvana, which came out back in September, and then Emergency Contact, which dropped in November, and then the new one, Even When I'm Not With You, which arrived last month. So definitely looking forward to talking to Tony Perry about the new Pierce the Veil. I know a lot of people really hyped about this new album too. So yeah, going to be a good one, man. Going to be a special one. It's again a twofer, a special twofer edition of the Loaded Radio Podcast. And let's not waste much time, man. Let's not waste any time, as a matter of fact. Let's get down to it. He is the frontman for the Ohio-based death metal band SANGUISUGABOGG, who are dropping the follow-up to 2021's Tortured Whole via Century Media Records. The name of the album is Homicidal Ecstasy. And this guy delivers death gutturals up there with the best of them, man. He's absolutely insane on the microphone. And I'm talking, of course, about Devin Swank. Devin, thanks so much for joining us this week on the Loaded Radio Podcast.
For sure, yeah.
Well, let's get down to the album, obviously. Homicidal Ecstasy, dropping February the 3rd. Where was the album recorded and who produced it?
It was recorded same place where we've recorded everything. We've done our drums at Encore Studios in Dayton, Ohio. Yep. And then we actually recorded guitars and vocals with our drummer, who's also an engineer, Cody, in his basement of all places.
Oh, really?
And then, yeah. And then it was mixed by Kurt Ballou from God City Studios, Massachusetts. And then it was mastered by Alan Duchess.
Alan Duchess, you know what? Because I got to say, though, because hearing the final product and hearing the way it was mastered, it's really tight. It's really strong, dude. So whoever did it, it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we're very happy about it and stoked to get it out finally.
Of course, Face Ripped Off, getting a lot of exposure these days with the video, of course. How involved were you guys in the making of the video for the song?
We added like the idea of me killing Drew.
Okay.
And then also like everyone just having a hand in it as far as like appearing throughout it. Like Zed is in it. You know, Drew finds me and I stab him in the neck, and then Cody is also laying down dead. But we actually didn't receive the script until the day before we headed out, not to shoot those, but we played a show like before shooting with Suffocation in Amityville, New York. So yeah, we didn't get the script until like almost the last minute. We were like, whoa, that's insane. So we decided to go balls out with it. And then I, as far as like having any hand on the storyline or anything like that, we just decided to sprinkle in like all of us in it.
Wow, because it's almost like a mini feature film almost, eh? Got that kind of feel.
Yeah. Definitely has that campy like horror movie type vibe. It's kind of what we go for. I like that kind of stuff. So
me too.
Yeah, and it was really fun to like explore like other sides of arts and entertainment and be a crazy psycho madman.
Yeah, man. Like, can you see? I mean, being that it is kind of that campy '80s kind of thing, could there possibly be a sequel in the future?
Oh shit, that would be cool. I tell you what, yeah, we had such a great time with David Brodsky and Allison Wost, who shot the first single that we put out, Pissed, and then shot Face Ripped Off, that we definitely would love to continue working with them and doing more music videos, maybe follow-ups and things too.
Yeah, that'd be like a cool theme, wouldn't it? Like put them all together. Like that'd be excellent, man.
Yeah, maybe like a involving like story like over time.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah, I'd love to see that, dude. Now, getting into the actual song, Face Ripped Off, the creation of the tune in the studio, putting it down. Where did the song come from for you?
When I write stuff, I try to come up with a title first and foremost, and then the story just kind of evolves from there. So I just thought how blatantly like obvious and just brutal as hell as a song title like Face Ripped Off, you know, just like our previous album, I was like dead as shit.
Yeah.
You know? So I just thought that was insane. And then, you know, I kind of just wrote from there, like how can I make it exploit that idea a little bit more? And I kind of wrote about it like being kind of romantic in a way, like they do it in a bath and they're bathing in the bath of their own blood, and like he's caressing the body that he's cutting. And
right.
Yeah, it just got weird. So yeah, and then, you know, every theme that we have is just to be, you know, as brutal and gnarly as possible. So, you know, when we were in the studio and everything, I wanted to make sure that I had some like really good, hard, guttural, you know, suffocation, Cannibal Corpse attack, like approach with the vocals.
Oh, without question. And it certainly comes through, man. I was going to actually bring up and ask, I mean, just before we get into more of the album, just your delivery as a vocalist is it's so intense and so brutal. And you can certainly hear, you know, the Corpse Grinder sort of, you know, it's kind of like the shadows of Corpse Grinder in there, and some of the other guys, like bands like Suffocation, like you mentioned. It really comes across so brutal and awesome, dude.
Shit, that's blasphemy in my world, man. Can't compare me to two gods, but that's sick, dude. Like those are my two favorite death metal bands, so you're clearly going to hear a lot of their influence in really anything that I do. And Corpse Grinder's the king, and I personally think, you know, Frank Mullen from Suffocation is probably the best vocalist in the genre, like period. He wrote the book on it. To me, we're talking about, of course, death metal vocalists. Besides Corpse Grinder and besides Mullen, of course, are there any other vocalists out there, maybe who aren't even in death metal, that you consider to be influential in some aspect? Yeah, big time. I'd say Todd Jones of Nails is a big influence of mine. Also, Jacob Bannon of Converge. I mean, the list goes on. As far as like showmanship, I mean, I could talk all day about like Bruce Dickinson, King Diamond. Yeah, I'm a big like traditional metal fan too as well. So
same. I
like all kinds of different vocalists.
Awesome, dude.
Oh yeah.
Looking at the genre itself, or actually, no, let's go back to the bit of the history of the band for people who don't know Sanguisugabogg. Looking at your creation, you guys have been around since 2019. How did the band really come together?
All of us knew each other from playing in other bands and being a part of a local scene, you know, here in Columbus, Dayton area. A lot of death metal bands. And then there's just seems to be like another death metal band every week in Ohio. It's crazy now. But a lot of hardcore bands, a lot of grind bands. There's a really big like gore grind, like pitch shifted vocal, weird style of music scene too in Dayton. And we all knew each other from playing shows and everything. And then you know, Cody was recording the EP from 2019, and I got wind of it. And once I heard it, I was like, hey, and I was like, you know, if you guys need anybody to throw vocals on it, I'm totally down. And then it was really, we all kind of did it all in one day. And we never really thought that it would come anywhere close to what we're doing now. But obviously we had plans to maybe play shows, release records. And yeah, I mean, once, I think after our first tour, like I booked, once we saw like what kind of attention we were facing, I was just like, you know, let's put all of our eggs in one basket and let's see what's to come out of this. So we, ever since then, we've dedicated our lives to it.
For the name of the band, obviously, from what my research, I found out that it means leech and toilet. Is that correct? What Sanguisugabogg means?
So there's a bunch of different meanings to it. We used to just tell people all kinds of different shit just to fuck with people, because we we like doing that. But what it actually means is like sanguisuga is a term for a leech or a blood, like a blood sucking like parasite or insect. Yeah. And then bog is also like a Slavic term for a divine being or a god. They use it in like a lot of role playing games and stuff. And so technically it means like a god that siphons blood and life out of people.
That's a gnarly name, dude.
Thanks.
Looking at the genre in itself that you guys are in, and for you, what are 3 essential death metal albums that you would recommend to somebody just getting into the genre?
Ooh, just getting into it?
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're just getting into it, I think starting off with like Death would be a probably good move, because they're not necessarily like full on death metal. I would say they're more so thrash and have a very like big progressive feel. So
particular album?
Human.
Leprosy or Human? Yeah. Okay.
I would say Human, because that was like the first album that got me hooked. I remember finding it at a trade spot, like where people were consigning CDs and DVDs and stuff. I remember picking it up when I was like 14 years old. I was like hooked on it. That one for sure. And then I would say Suffocation's Pierce from Within. I know that's like a really big jump in between, but I think it's just enough adjacent to like other styles of metal that it could easily get someone that's not familiar with death metal hooked to it. And then I would say Obituary's Cause of Death, because that was like the first death metal album I ever heard.
It's a great album. What about the album do you like?
I just like, for its time, I think it came out in 88 or 89, that it was just insane. You had like Sepultura doing their thing, all these other thrash bands, and these like proto like death metal bands. And then Obituary comes out the gate with Cause of Death, and it's heavy as balls, every song on it.
Great 3 choices. Last question for you. What's coming up ahead for you guys? Touring plans, obviously, going to be on the road for a bit, or what's up?
Yep. We have a regional run that we're doing at the end of February with our really good friends in Internal Bleeding, Year of the Knife, and Vomit Forth, another new upcoming death metal band. We're also on the Chaos and Carnage tour this spring.
I saw that.
Dying Fetus and Suicide Silence, Aborted, Born of Osiris, Crown Magnetar, and
that's gonna be a fucking awesome tour, dude.
Yeah. We're stoked. I've stoked that I get to share the stage with Dying Fetus every night, and hopefully get to meet those dudes and chat them up.
Devin, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate your time today. And dude, I love your band. I can't wait to see you guys on the road, dude. It's going to be great.
Sounds good. Scott, good talking to you, man. Take it easy.
You as man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
There he is. That's Devin Swank from Sanguisugabogg. If you like brutal death metal, this is your band. Great killer stuff. The new album is titled Homicidal Ecstasy. And again, check out the official video for Face Ripped Off. It's just insane. It's just killer. It's just great. And you know what? It's very theatrical. If you're a big fan of horror, you're definitely going to want to check it out. All right, but hey, I'm Scott Penfold. We are halfway through this week's edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. And yeah, special edition this week as we got not one but 2 guests. And I'm now being joined by Tony Perry, who is the guitar player for the band Pierce the Veil. Now, Pierce the Veil have the new album, The Jaws of Life, their 5th studio album, which is going to be arriving on February the 10th. It's also the band's first album not to feature drummer Mike Fuentes, who parted ways with the band back in 2017. Now, we've already heard 3 singles off the album, Past the Nirvana, Emergency Contact, and Even When I'm Not With You. You can call them post-hardcore, you can call them metalcore, whatever you want. They're just an absolutely killer band. Tony, thanks for joining us on the Loaded Radio podcast, man.
Awesome. Of course.
Let's get right into the new album. Arrives February the 10th, Jaws of Life. Now, did you guys work with Dan Cornifigan on the production role for this album?
No, this time we went with Paul Meany. We did 2 records with Dan, and then we ended up giving him a nice call to check in and let him know we were going to try something different this time. And yeah, Paul Meany, he did some work with 21 Pilots and decided to give it a shot. And we had a great time.
So was there a particular reason that you chose him?
A lot of it was just to try something different. We felt like this record was going to be a little different from records in the past. And, just to change things up, we wanted to work with someone new and get a different feel out of this record from what we've done in the past. There's, we went through a lot of changes between records before and this time, and it just felt like, a good time to try something new.
So when you're saying a different sound with the new LP, would you say that it's a departure than what maybe we got with Misadventures? Is it like a totally new kind of a sound, or?
It's not completely like, we didn't completely change everything about us, but we did get more adventurous, I guess, with some of the production aspects and things like that. We tried, different ways. And I think a lot of it wasn't even that we set out to make the record sound specifically different. It was just we wanted to change up the process. This record, instead of going to a studio, we recorded the entire thing in a house, and we brought equipment into it, and we just lived in that house and, set up certain rooms as control rooms and live rooms and things like that. And the working environment was more, instead of us, getting everything written and then, just going through the motions of tracking, we were kind of writing and tracking certain parts at the same time. So while, one person was tracking guitar parts, we would still have another live guitar in the room in case someone came up with something on the fly, and we would just track it. And whatever was happening, Paul Meany was like, what was that sound? Let's record it. And he just got layers and layers and layers of extra things. And it just became part of our process we didn't bother to really mess with how well it fit. We just threw it on there, and then we'd go back through it later and figure out what else, what was working, what wasn't. And he just wanted to get as much out of us in the moment as he could. And it was really cool. It was fun to do things that way.
Is it your first time doing an album that way?
Yeah. In the past, we've generally, gone through all the pre-production parts. We've, gotten the songs down exactly how we want them. And then when it comes to tracking time, it's just, okay, you need to track, A, B, and C, and you just sit there and do it and get the perfect take. We've never had someone still jamming, while that was going on, and we never really were adding more things in that moment either. So it's pretty cool.
Nice, man. Now, aside from the pandemic, which is obvious, why the 7-year gap between albums?
It kind of just happened,
Yeah.
We were ending our record cycle in 2017, and what normally would have been, so that was, we toured on Misadventures for a couple of years. Yeah. We were about to take a couple of years off to write the record, and that couple of years, right when we were talking about starting to actually jam together for that record, it was when the pandemic hit. So it cut that short. So that pushed everything back about a year and a half. And then as we were trying to get things moving again, we're moving along. We had time booked in the studio with Paul Meany. He's out in New Orleans, and that all got pushed back because there was that big hurricane out there.
Right.
So then that added another section of time before we could actually even go out there and track. And it just kind of kept, every time we'd get close to our goal, something would happen and set us back.
Of course, a lot of people happy this is going to finally be dropping on February the 10th. I've heard a couple of tracks off of it so far. First off, the song Past the Nirvana. What can you tell me about that song particularly?
That one was a fun one. We got to, that one was a funny one. We had just a big blank spot on the track because we couldn't figure out a chorus for that song for a pretty long time. Okay. So we just had this track, a session that, each of us had, and we were trying to write stuff to it. And it was just, the song would go and then it would just be blank and just click for a few bars because we had no chorus. But yeah, it finally came together. I was pretty pumped to release that one first because it's one of the harder, more rock songs. We still got some screaming in there, and it was, kind of fun to come out swinging with something like that. And it was also nice to be able to release the last 2 songs that we've put out, just to kind of show that there's a pretty broad range of rock on the record, you know.
I was going to bring up Single Emergency Contact. Is it almost of a different vein, I'd say, than Past Nirvana? But what can you tell me about that song?
Yeah, that one, we had like a lot going on, battling with structure and things like that for that song, but we were all pumped on how we ended up, you know, making it. And yeah, I don't know, we had a lot of fun with that bridge. It was like a cool, heavy kind of rock, I don't know, like almost Weezer kind of vibe. And It was just a fun song to write. It was fun to have like such a pretty melody up front and then get kind of heavy for that bridge and get a little loud. So after that, when we released Even When I'm Not With You, that was like one of my favorite songs from the get-go. I think we had that song done almost a year, maybe a couple of years earlier than we went to track.
Really?
And we'd even talked about releasing that song maybe before, like being one of the first singles and stuff at one point. But I think it worked out because I don't know. I think it's one of my favorite songs on the record. Probably my favorite one overall, but I was always kind of nervous. I was like, I wonder how Pierce the Veil fans are going to take this.
Oh, really?
Because I think I appreciate that, like, the response has been good, but I was just wondering if they're like, oh, they're not a rock band anymore or something, but
right.
The response was good.
Well, what is your writing structure within the band? I mean, obviously going in the studio, you were talking about that aspect of it, but I mean, when writing these songs, when it comes down to like putting down like, you know, lyrics and just the creation, is you guys have a particular method that you follow?
Yeah. The method has always been like Vic's the main writer for all this stuff.
Sure.
So it's always kind of been, he likes to work on his own. He tends to do like writing trips or things like that to kind of be on his own and get in his like his own world. And it tends to be him coming to us with the song, and then we'll jam it out together and see if there's anything we need to add, or, you know, a lot of that addition this time around was actually in the studio, but usually, you know, when there's no COVID involved, it's in the jam room here in San Diego.
Yeah.
And then other than that, like sometimes if Jaime has a riff or if I have a riff, we'll record that and send it Vic's way and build off of that, you know, just kind of, it depends, but a lot of the times it's Vic. He has his songs pretty written, and then we just kind of work together to finish it.
Gotcha. Well, just even like the sound of the band. I mean, you guys have been classified as everything from punk to hardcore to metalcore, even to Mexicore.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like Pierce the Veil fits into one specific genre?
I wish we did, so I could explain it easier to people. Because I feel like anytime someone, you know, if I meet like a random person, like, you're in a band? I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in a band.
Right.
What kind? I'm like, rock band. And then like, well, what kind of rock? I'm like, oh no, here we go. Like, cause I don't know how to classify it. And I guess maybe that's a good thing, but I wish.
So many subgenres, man. There's so many.
Call it.
No, I get it. But I mean, if you had to try and explain it to say somebody who was just learning about the band, how would you try and say it? Is it like
yeah, I tend to just categorize it as alternative to most people, but yeah, I don't know, I'll talk about like post-hardcore kind of stuff, because that was that genre that we kind of grew up on, and that's where we were kind of kicking off as a band. So yeah, I feel like we fall into that post-hardcore subcategory.
Certainly.
But then there's plenty of people that don't know what post-hardcore is, so then I don't know. It gets hard. I
get you, dude. Is Pierce the Veil completely split with Mike Fuentes now, the drummer, or is the door still open for a possible return there?
He chose to leave, and yeah, he's doing his own thing now. So it's kind of, I think he was just kind of done with that chapter of his life.
Is there any communication there at all? Do you guys still talk to him? Or?
Oh yeah. We still talk to him. We got to visit him and stuff while we were on this past tour, and yeah, everything's still good between all of us. So he just chose not to do music anymore.
And just looking at, I mean, you guys have toured so extensively over your tenure. I mean, you've toured with everyone from Immure to Bring Me the Horizon to Black Veil Brides. I mean, the list is really endless. Do you have a favorite band that you guys have toured with personally, like one that you enjoyed the tour aspect or experience with the most?
Well, that's not fair. No, I love so many of the bands we toured with. It's funny that you mentioned some of those early shows, because like I think one of the funniest things is like our early tours we toured with Poison the Well. And yeah. I still am a huge fan of Poison the Well, but it was so weird to be, you know, playing before a band that heavy. Like we just did not fit in at all. But
Really?
it was an awesome experience. But yeah, it's just funny because there's just such a heavy hardcore band. And then there was us, and that was when we only had the one record out. So there wasn't, not a lot of breakdowns or heavy things for us to choose from for that set list.
Right.
But yeah, that was a good time touring with Poison. I think Heavy Lolo was also on that tour. But yeah,
that would have been a rad tour, man. That would have been awesome.
It was fun. This is back in we were playing like skate parks and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Like the
cool
Vans Warped Tour kind of stuff, like around then.
No, not even. Well, like around that time, but not even that big. Like we were playing like inside we'd be set up on the half pipe or something like after hours at a skate park. These are like
that's awesome,
really
man.
tiny tours. Yeah.
Now, say for somebody who's just discovering Pierce the Veil, what songs would you suggest they listen to really understand what the band is about? Like, what are some good gateway songs for someone just getting into the band?
See, there's always a toss up. Like I would like people to listen to the newer stuff. So I feel like Circles is a good example of like progression of the band. I'd love them to hear Past Nirvana and obviously Emergency and Even When, because that's our latest work.
Sure.
From older records, I think Besitos was a really cool one. And I think it kind of leans into like why that term Mexicore was coined, because it has a few of those Spanish parts in it. Bulls in the Bronx also would be a cool one for people to check out, because that's another one where we have like the Spanish guitar in the bridge and things like that. So I don't know. I really like that stuff because I feel like some of those little parts are what kind of made us stand out. And yeah.
Now, obviously, you're going to be busy for the next little while. The album is dropping February the 10th. You guys going to be on the road for a while? What's the tour plan?
We're going to start announcing tours for next year. I think we announced one for, actually it might be a year out. We announced the UK tour. We're going back there. We have some stuff coming up in March and pretty much through the rest of the year after that. So Vic's about to have a baby. So, and it's due right around the time of the record. So we're staying home until that's, good, and giving him some time to be there for the kid. And then after that, we'll, hit the ground running and start touring again for the rest of the year.
That's cool, man. I know a lot of people are excited and are eagerly waiting to see a Pierce the Veil show again, dude. So it's going to be great when you're back out there. Yeah,
it was fun. We did some quick runs at the end of last year, and it was, really, really scary, not being on a stage. And I think it had been 5 years since I even stepped foot up there. And also that scary feeling like, are there still fans? Are they still waiting? Or,
oh, dude, there is.
Did they grow up and grow out of it? Because I'm like, 5 years, I was like, that's enough time for someone to start and graduate high school. Like they could have gone through there, like. That's a good point, man. It really is. You don't really even think of it that way, right? Yeah. So it was wild. It was wild to come back to it and then look out. And each night, we would ask the question, how many people have seen us before? How many people it's their first time? And it was at every show that we did it was pretty much an even split of, new fans, which was crazy. We're like, how can there be that many people that have never seen us? And we've been doing this for 15 years. So it was pretty crazy. Yeah, that's definitely cool, Bo. Tony, thanks so much, man. This has been really cool talking to you, man. I've always wanted to speak to somebody from the band. I'm really happy it was you. So thanks so much for taking the time today. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's Tony Perry from Pierce the Veil, and the new album drops February the 10th. It's called The Jaws of Life. Before I get out of here, I want to remind you to check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news updated constantly as well. You're going to want to check out past podcasts there and the 24-hour online radio station, which features live personalities and tons of great niche programming. It's just tons of hard rock and metal all the time, 24/7. It's right there for you, where you can as well download the Loaded Radio app. Get that wherever you get your apps, and of course at loadedradio.com. I'll be back again next week with an all-new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast with a brand new guest, and I might have a co-host next week, which would be nice. Maybe I'll get Johnny or Jules or somebody from Loaded Radio to join me. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you again next week right here on an all-new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast.
Loaded Radio.